morning, everyone. My name is Qasim Al Khalil. As you know, we have today our presentation consists of three sessions: traffic signals and street lights and roundabout. I will start with the traffic signals, and my colleagues will. The main objectives of this session is mainly to assist you in order to have a good set of plans. As you know, the traffic signal has to be warranted before start design. And the warrant is mainly, the traffic signal warrant is based on the MUTCD, the manual traffic control devices. And the warrants are evaluated based on the engineering studies where you count the existing or projected condition, pedestrian and accident. The projected mainly conditions talking mainly about a new development where it will generate traffic volume that justify or warrant a signal. Prior to design, the consultant or the designer, they can get the information listed here, either from BUSO or they contact us, we can mail this information. As you see over here, we have the sample set, and the CAD cell library, and the latest general notes, and the standard detail specification from BUSO. By the way, they are migrating BUSO information. And also, we provide the traffic signal guidelines and the cabinet and controller specification. We highly recommend that, the consultant to contact us prior to design. We would like to have a field meeting, and this will help both of us. In the field meeting, we'll go over there to locate the power source and to find a good location for the electrical service and the cabinet and the signal pole and so on. And prior we go over there, the consultant has to call dig test about 3-4 days in order to mark the utilities, which will help us, to locate where the pole is going to be. This will help you in the long run. Maybe later on when you submit 100% design, if we have to change the location, it will affect maybe if you already buy the signal pole, that will help you. So we highly recommend that. And after that, the traffic signal design plan should include, as you see, the following, the cover sheet, the general notes, the index, the quantity summary sheet. The quantity summary sheet should have all the pertinent items to that one. And you have to show also the existing. Okay. Also, you have to show the existing and removal proposed signal layout. And also you have to, at the end of the design plans, you have to show all the, you have to put all the detailed standard sheets. And you should have one on each sheet. Some consultants, they have like 4 and 1. Maybe when in the field you have half size, it's very hard to read those. And also you have to have the signs and marking sheets, and you have to show in each mark and signing sheet a tabulated, show the quantities in a tabulated form, in a table form. And also you have to show approved city or text.ada ramps. And detailed corner sheets, again, for this one, you have to show each corner detail in a separate sheet by itself. And of course, you have to show the summary of the conduit and cable wire sheet. You have to show the inside and outside the cable and wires in that chart. And you have to show also the signal pole location. Make sure you try to keep the signal poles at least 3 foot away from the curb, because if truck, turning, it could damage, the pole or the signal, the signal. Also, you have to show the utility and overhead and underground, and you have to number and label all signal infrastructures, and you have to show if the red camera is applicable, you have to show that one, and preemption if needed. You have to show also the type of detection. Mainly we use hybrid type detection, and PTZ camera, pan, tilt, zoom camera location, and you need to show the type of poles and with or without luminaires. It depends on the overhead, if you are within 10 foot, put luminaires and so on. And show the length of the mast arm, the ground boxes, the conduit, and etc. For this one, the pole location, you have to show dimension from, which we have the other one. You have to show how far from each curve over here to tie it up, bottom line. And when you're numbering the signal pole, assuming this is north-south, you start from the northwest corner with T1, T2, T3, T4. And if for some reason you have to have a PED pole because of ADA requirements, you need also to start from here, P1, P2, 3, and so on. Maybe you need maybe 1 or 2 PED poles, And with respect to the numbering, you have to start also from the northwest corner, signal phase 1, 2, 3, and so on. You go clockwise. And you have to show also the cabinet location. And we suggest that the electrical service and the cabinet to be on the same slab foundation. And we have detail. We can email it to you if it's not embossed so. Also, sometimes we have consultants, they don't follow NEMA phasing. Normally, according to NEMA phasing, if you have the measure street, east-west, you start with the phase 2, phase 4, and so on clockwise. And if you have north-south, the northbound is the measure, north-south is the measure, you start with northbound as phase 2, and so on. That will help our technician, in the field, if you follow that one. Also, I know you submit 100% design to IPSC, so you respond to all city comments, and you have to resolve all conflict, any utility conflict, and I'm sure you circulate for signature. And for us, the traffic signal section, we need for you to deliver, whether by mail or by in person. USP has electronic file, a CAD file. Some people, they say you have MicroStation. We use CAD. You have to convert it. And also 11 electronic PDF, 11 by 17, and a hard copy. Because sometimes, consultant, they ask us, do you have as-built? So we have to look for as-built. In this case, we will have those, our office. And prior to construction, as noted in the general notes, the latest general notes, that the contractor has to contact us at least 2 weeks in advance in order to bring the cabinet and the controller in order to time it, because we have to do timing, and we have to test it in the office before we take it to the field. This is pretty much in a nutshell, Yes, if we have, we leave the question at the end, right? Okay, thank you. If you have a question.
Good morning, everyone. Are you awake? Maybe? Yes? I'm Marisa Conlon, and I'm the new Senior Capital Projects Officer in Traffic Management, responsible for transportation operations. And this morning, I'll be discussing streetlight design with you. We're going to cover a few items today. Mainly, we're going to do a streetlight overview. Then we're going to talk about our policies and procedures, our design requirements, and finally, our pre-qualified contractors. Okay, so for those consultants in the room, how many of you have been confused by the City of Fort Worth streetlight design policies? Quick show of hands. Thank you, we appreciate the honesty. Yes, it is very confusing, and one of the reasons for this is because the city owns and maintains its own lighting system. And what this means is that we as a city, we made the choice to purchase a system from the electric utility company many years ago. This was way back in the 20th century, right? And the reason we did that was because of the customer experience. What we were hearing from our residents at the time was that it was too difficult to get the lights maintained. It was really hard to make sure that the lights were being installed at the spacing that we wanted, and that we didn't have enough options about the lights that we could install. And so for all those reasons, the city made the decision to purchase this system. And when we purchased this system, we bought everything. And so now we own all the poles, we own the foundations, we own the arms, the wires, and the lights themselves. And when we talk about owning the wires, we don't just mean, like the overhead wires, we mean the underground wires. In some cases, we also we also own the electrical service points. So there's actually quite a bit that goes into this. In order for us to do that, we have to have an agreement with the utility companies. Fort Worth is actually, we work with 4 different power companies. Did anybody in here know that? No? Yes? Good. Most of the time we work with Oncor, although we do work with the other utilities on occasion. But yes, we do have these agreements with them. These agreements are very unique to Transportation Public Works and streetlights in particular, and they actually don't apply to the other departments here at the city. And so, for example, we can actually access portions of Oncor's electrical system. For example, our police department cannot do this. They actually have to have a separate agreement with separate responsibilities. So again, very, very different. We get a lot of questions, especially when there's turnover at some of the utility companies that we don't normally work with, because they're not as familiar with Fort Worth and they don't necessarily know that our city policies require us to own the lights. And so right now, for example, we're working with a few of the utility companies where there's been some turnover, trying to make sure we reestablish those relationships and that they understand Fort Worth's requirements. So if you have any questions about Fort Worth requirements and ownership, please let us know at the end of our presentation. We'll be happy to talk to you about those and to answer any questions. Just to give you a scope of what we take care of and what we maintain, we did an audit back in 2016, and we found out that we take care of about 67,000 lights. 41,000 of those are in our neighborhoods, about 22,000 are along our arterials, and 4,000 are actually owned by the Texas Department of Transportation, but the city is required to maintain those. This is a little bit different from some of the other TxDOT maintenance agreements. The city, for example, is actually required in this case to pay for the electric bills. So we go ahead and do that, and we have our staff and contractors who help us take care of the freeway system. Now, a lot of our policies you might be wondering about, but our policies are all based on the fact that Fort Worth owns and operates its own system. We did have policies going back to the Brown Book from 1987, but in the modern era, we really started back in 2001 when the policy for the installation of community facilities agreement was adopted by the city. This was really the first time that we said that we wanted to install more lighting in neighborhoods. And this is where we start giving the guidance for that additional lighting in the neighborhoods. In 2015, the CFA policy on Section 8 for street lighting was revised. And at that point, it really was just mainly some minor changes to the 2001 policy. What's key out of this, though, is for those with questions, the arterial light spacing was established here. That's every 200 feet. The neighborhood and residential spacing was also established. This is 200 feet. And then the decorative spacing was established at 150 feet. As long as you meet these spacing requirements, we do not require engineering studies for the lights. However, if you choose to deviate from this policy, you will be required to submit an engineering study. And again, this is all covered in Section 8. Now, that decorative spacing I just gave you, there's a caveat to that. If you happen to be working in an urban design district or in a historic district, You really need to follow up with those district planners to make sure you understand the light spacing, because in those districts, it can vary. Sometimes you might have 60 feet, sometimes it could be 75 feet. It just depends on the area that you're at. Again, we work very closely with our planning team to make sure that we understand what all the rules and regulations are, so that as we're going through these processes, we're all giving our consultants the correct and most up-to-date information. And this brings us up to 2012. In 2012, we did a streetlight standards update. So we looked at all of our construction documents, and we updated all of those, especially the electrical power information and the decorative pole selection. We're going to talk more about the decorative poles in just a minute, but this is really the point where the city said that we needed to select our most popular light types, have standards for those, and then allow those as choices. The reason that we did this was because, frankly, number one, we just didn't have the money to tie up an inventory anymore. And so what was happening was our warehouse was like Walmart. Who likes Walmart? Anybody? Okay, maybe not today, okay, that's all right. We used to be the Walmart of TPW. You could walk into our warehouse and literally request any materials there, and if they had it, they would deliver it to you. But what was happening was we were tying up millions of dollars in inventory, and we desperately needed those millions of dollars to do other things here at the city. So that was the warehousing aspect of it, or the financial aspect of it. The other warehousing aspect was we just didn't have space. Back then in 2012, we were in about 4 different pole yards across the city. We had sites out north, we had sites on the east side of town, on the south side of town, pretty much everywhere. But again, it costs a lot of money to go ahead and rent those spaces out. And so right now, we are down to one tiny yard. Our tiny yard at James Avenue is the only yard that we have available for space. And so, again, in our 2016 inventory, what we found was that we actually were maintaining at that time roughly 4 dozen, so that's roughly 48 different pole types. And we couldn't afford to do that, and so it was at this point that we started making that changeover. From there, we go to 2014 and 2018, and again, in 2014, we established Policy 31.29 on street lighting, and basically what this policy says is that we're adopting the CFA policy as the city lighting policy, which meant that it was now applicable to our CIP projects and to our maintenance projects. And we also said that LEDs were going to become the standard fixture. And then in 2018, the update to that was that when we were going into some of these neighborhoods, we were looking at using the existing support structures or the materials that were already there. So in some cases, we know that there were options for wood poles because there was a lot of redevelopment. And so we didn't think that there was a need to put in metal poles when we could use the wood utility poles that were already there. Okay, so for anybody who is wondering, these are typically the light types that you will see in Fort Worth now. Again, these were some of our more popular styles. The Washington in particular was everywhere. It was in a lot of residential areas. It was downtown in the Sundance area. The Berry Street pole was one that became popular once we started installing that along Berry Street. Same thing with the Saturn in West 7th. Not only is that light in the western part of town, it's also now along Lancaster in the southern portions of downtown. And the same thing is true for the City Hall light. And then finally, we have our Terrell Heights light. This is one that's a historic pole. So again, we can use these poles pretty much anywhere in Fort Worth unless there's a historic district, in which case we do have to check with our planning and development department to make sure that one of these pole types is appropriate for that area. So this takes us to our design requirements. So here, I really just want to remind everybody, we do have a streetlight checklist, and we have our detail sheets. I've listed here the detail sheets that are most common. These are for our Cobra heads. We also have the decorative sheets. If you can't find them on Buzzsaw, please let us know. I know that some of that information has been moved around. We're happy to send you that information. Some of it has changed because we are converting all of that to LEDs now. And then the other thing I wanted to really point out was the streetlight luminaire specifications. Again, some of the information on Buzzsaw might be a little bit old, and this information is constantly changing. So please feel free to call our office. We will make sure that we work with you to get you the most up-to-date information on the fixtures. What I tried to do here was just give you a little bit of information, especially for our residential areas, on our equivalents. And so what we're finding out is that every year, the wattage requirement is dropping, which is a good thing because the lights are becoming more powerful. And so, for example, with our residential light, I think right now, we're seeing some that are about 40 watts. And so if you've been with us for a while, then you'll know that we started off with 70 watts. We were at 50 watts for a while, and now it looks like we're going to be moving to 40. These are all good things because most of the Fort Worth lights are on a tariff, and so basically we're paying a lower energy rate for all of this, and the lights are becoming more efficient. So just let us know if you have any questions about those issues. And again, we have our construction specifications. We've been updating all of that material. We're trying to put it out to Buzzsaw or our new equivalent as soon as possible. But again, there's always a little bit of a lag. So if you have questions, please call us. Finally, I wanted to touch on the pre-qualified contractors. So the reason that we moved to pre-qualified contractors, again, because we own our own system, and there are some unique design requirements as compared to some of the other cities in North Texas. Our pre-qualified contractors know what those requirements are, and they're willing to work with us and with the electric utilities. The big thing in all of this is the requirements. So we want to make sure that there's a financial statement, references, equipment schedule, and experience that are submitted to our office. It generally takes us about 2 weeks to review that. We may call and ask the contractor a few questions, typically on the financial statement and sometimes on the references. Usually those are pretty easy to clear up. But again, it's usually about a 2-week process. So if you're working with a contractor who's not pre-qualified, it's not a very difficult process. We just ask that you contact our office and start working on that as soon as possible because we don't want to slow down construction. There is a renewal requirement, and that's every 2 years. And the only thing they really have to do is submit the new financial statement. We'll give that a quick review. So usually the renewal process is faster than the actual pre-qualification itself. But again, we're willing to work with people. There's also a 6-month window. So again, if you're working with a contractor who's not pre-qualified yet, send them over to our office. We'd love to get them pre-qualified. Our main contact for all of this right now is Courtney Davis. She's our new graduate engineer. She's been with us about 9 months, and we're really happy to have her. In fact, Courtney is going to be our contact going forward. In streetlights, we're going through a little bit of a transition and a reorganization. And so what's happened is that the design team is going to be working with the city traffic engineer, and the operations and maintenance staff is going to be working with me in the operations section. We wanted to make sure that we had a smooth transition for you, and that's why we've decided to start telling everybody that Courtney is the contact. So it doesn't matter if she's working with me, which she is right now until we find our new street lighting manager, or if she's working with the new street lighting manager, she'll be behind the scenes looking at the plans and working on all of the pre-qualifications. And so we'll be glad to take your questions at the end. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lisette.
Good morning. So are you guys awake? Yes. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here this morning. For those who don't know me, my name is Lisette Acevedo. I'm one of the program managers in the Capital Delivery Division. And some people call me the roundabout queen. I'm not the roundabout queen. But I know a little bit about them because I've been designing them and building them for the last 5 years or so. So I would like to share my knowledge with you guys this morning. That doesn't mean that I have all of the answers. Roundabouts are very unique. So I'm gonna go over our design guidelines, and then what is your process if you would like to have a roundabout submitted with your set of plans and review promptly. Okay, this is a new process that we established about 6 months ago. So it's still kind of like in the works, like we're trying to go as, learn as we go. Just very briefly, have you guys all been informed of the BIM 360 workshop that we're having this Friday morning? If you haven't, please plan to attend. I believe it's at 9 a.m. in the council chambers. This is going to be the new software that is going to be replacing Buzzsaw, okay, called BIM 360. So it's really important that you guys attend that workshop on Friday morning. Other thing is that the resources folder on Buzzsaw, which is the one that has a lot of the public information and a lot of the stuff, it's going to be available for you until March 31st. Okay, so everything else on Buzzsaw is going to be transferred except for the resources folder. They're still going to be available for you guys to use until March 31st. After that, we're still trying to figure out what that answer is for that. I also brought copies of the guidelines. I make a few copies, about 20 sets. So if you guys would like to take a copy of these, because like Marisa mentioned, they're transferring all the documentation, from the Buzzsaw to BIM 360 and so forth and so on. So if you can find that information, I got my business cards here. Make sure that you take one. And if you reach out to me, I'll make sure that I get whatever information you're looking for. All right, so then with that, let's get started. So we want to talk about the design guidelines, and these are guidelines. These are not, specific design as like you find for other things, like for traffic signals or for street lights or even for streets. Roundabouts are very unique. Every single location is different. So these are really guidelines to follow. We're going to talk about additional documentation that you should include with your set of plans in order to have a peer review conducted, okay? And then we're going to talk about the process. So these are just the guidelines for like the single lane roundabouts and the multi-lane roundabouts, which the city of Fort Worth we're only building up to 2 lanes so far. And it basically gives you like diameter guidelines. It gives you like your turning radius. It talks about your entry, approach design speeds, what they should be, et cetera. And that's here. Now, when you should consider a roundabout in your development, if you have an intersection that does not meet traffic signal design, warrants, that's a good option to, as a traffic control method. If you cannot meet your MUTCD warrants for traffic signal, but you think that you're going to have quite a bit of traffic at that intersection, then a roundabout might be a better option. If you have an unusual geometry, if you have a T intersection or you have an intersection that is coming to an angle, a roundabout is a good option for intersection control methodology. This is continuing on the, you want to pass this around? Yeah. Continuing on the guidelines, it gives you number of trucks per hour. It gives you the entry width. It talks about the inner and the outer circulatory circle, etc. So this is your technical guidelines to follow, and this is basically what our these guidelines were developed for the 2014 bond program, and then we just kind of like did a minor update to them in terms of striping and signing. Most important element of your roundabouts is your geometry, okay, is your horizontal design. That's really critical, because if we're not meeting the desired entry speeds, or the fast pass analysis indicates that, traffic is going through there too fast, then that's going to require quite a bit of tweak, and that impacts your design overall. So the horizontal alignment is the most critical thing for the roundabout, and then you supplement with the signs and the striping. So additional documentation that you should include with your submittal for your review. Your design approach speed. We're not going to, we're striving for achieving less than 25 miles per hour for your entry speeds, okay? We were designing about 25 to 27 miles per hour for entry speeds back in 2013 and 2014, and we just finally, determined after 5 years of studying our roundabouts that that's too fast. So we are trying to achieve less than 25 miles an hour for your entry approach speeds, okay? Preferably 22 to 24 miles per hour, okay? Your number of lanes, you can handle about 20,000 vehicles a day with a single lane roundabout. So more is not necessarily what you need. Single lane roundabout can do a lot for you. Your design vehicle, are you gonna have to, is it only for passenger traffic? Are you gonna have trucks with attached trailers? Are you gonna have, you're trying to accommodate for a larger vehicle? You don't need to design everything for WB67, which is your 18-wheelers. So keep that in mind, all right? Your traffic volume to support the roundabout layout. So like I said, if you don't anticipate that you're gonna have more than 20,000 vehicles traveling through there a day, single lane roundabout probably can do the job. And your performance checks, this is really important. Your fast pass analysis and your outer turn analysis showing that you can accommodate whatever design vehicle you're submitting in your design, in your horizontal design. This information, it's submitted, it's included with the set of plans and is submitted for a peer review, okay? A third-party peer review. I manage that contract with MSA. So for the process, follow your design guidelines that are, we just talked about. Submit your plans, including that additional documentation. If you are submitting a set of plans for a development that includes a roundabout, identify that with your submittal, that you have a roundabout in your set of plans and that you're requesting for a peer review to be performed. Your project manager, under your IPRC project manager, then will submit a request to me for the peer review to be performed. We have a contract with MSA, doing business as Orson Engineering, and they're the subject matter experts when it comes to roundabout design. So I will prepare a task order, I will issue a task order and submit it to MSA with the information and then try to get back with you as soon as possible. We know that your design review times are 2 weeks. Mike? Did Mike leave? Vic? Is it 2 weeks? So we try to get these in and turn around from MSA in a week or less, because we know that you have a pretty tight time frame for review. Once the peer review is completed and you get the comments back from MSA, if you have a lot of concerns or a lot of issues, or the comments are really altering your design and you're pretty much locked in with your right-of-way and everything, you can request to have a meeting with MSA to discuss these comments and try to see if some of these comments can be addressed through that methodology. Okay, we're trying to reserve these peer reviews for the larger intersections, like collectors or arterials. If it's just two local streets that are 30 feet, both are 28 or 30 feet in width, we're not requesting peer reviews because those are fairly simple. The speeds are low, the volumes are low, so we're not that concerned with the geometry on those. And with that, I'm gonna open it for questions for all 3 sessions. Again, the contact information for you to request those peer reviews, you have to go through your IPRC project manager, okay? Don't send me the stuff, send it to your project manager with IPRC, identify that you have a roundabout in your plans, make sure that you include the additional documentation in order to have the peer review done fast. And then after that, they will get with me and do a request for the peer review, and then I will get the peer review conducted. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna open it for questions. Signal questions?
Light question? If you have a question later on, you have the contact information.
We are doing LED lights. We started installing LEDs as part of our capital program back in 2014 when we adopted City Policy 31.29. No, it's replaced with a street light. So basically what happened, just to give you a little bit of history, is around the time that the street lighting policy was adopted, we started doing our own evaluation. And then In 2015 and early 2016, we selected a lighting vendor. And so for maintenance projects, anytime a light goes out now in the city of Fort Worth, we are requiring, and have been since 2016, that they change it out with an LED. So the city of Fort Worth actually owns the lights on Jacksboro Highway, and so we do work with TxDOT. We notify them typically whenever we're out working on any of their facilities, and they are aware that we are installing LEDs. Yes, if there's an outage on Jacksboro, for example, we do ask that you call the city of Fort Worth. In fact, I'm going to give all of you our maintenance number, so that's 817-392-8100.
Do you guys have any questions for me? All right. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Don't forget about the BIM 360 session on Friday morning, and you guys have a great day.